because of handouts and donations from Libyans, but it's a basic existence. The problems for these men are compounded by the fact they haven't been paid by their company, and that's hurting their families back home.
In some cases, literally dropped everything, including their documents in some cases. So they're travelling home empty-handed. Many through remittances are supporting quite sizable families back home. And so it's going to have a huge knock-on effect.
There are more than 2,500 migrant workers here and another 1,000 in nearby camps, but that's what they know. It's estimated that the figure is much higher, perhaps by 3 or 4 times. Many workers, especially those from Africa, feel frightened.
Some of us, we are surviving. Some of us, we are dead now. Right now, we are looking for the solution.
That solution is being provided by international organisations now arriving in Benghazi. Most in this camp will be repatriated in the coming days or weeks, but there are still pockets of Indians, Filipinos and Africans unaccounted for. And for now, there is nothing to do but wait and hope the violence doesn't return. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Benghazi.
Now, graphic video has emerged of what appears to be a group of soldiers massacred in Libya. The video was posted on Facebook, so it cannot be independently verified, but the pictures appear to show the bodies of at least 21 men in military clothing, bound and blindfolded. One man seems to still be alive. The Facebook page says the video was first run on state TV, which identified the dead men as soldiers killed by anti-government fighters. But the Facebook posting says the men were actually killed by pro-government forces for refusing to fight. The US president has once again called on Muammar Gaddafi to step down immediately, but Barack Obama didn't lay out any concrete plans, saying all options are still open. From Washington, here's Patty Culhane.
After more than a week of silence on Libya, U.S. President Barack Obama made it clear how he would like to see the fighting there end.
Colonel Gaddafi needs to step down from power and leave. It's time for Gaddafi to go. He must leave.
But so far the president is more focused on getting the estimated 30,000 Egyptians and other foreign nationals out of Tunisia, where they fled looking for refuge, ordering military and civilian aircraft in to fly them home. As for Libyans, Mr. Obama says he's most concerned the violence now engulfing them will turn into a prolonged stalemate.
There may be situations in which Gaddafi is hunkered down in his compound, but the economy or food distribution systems in Tripoli, for example, start deteriorating. And we're going to have to figure out how do we potentially get food in there. So there are a whole range of options, military and non-military, that we're examining.
The option the U.S. Senate has been pushing is the implementation of a no-fly zone, one influential senator dismissing military objections that it could be a challenge. This as Pentagon officials confirm they believe the Libyan Air Force is engaged in the fight.
It seems to me that we could neutralize very easily a very antiquated air defense system with old airplanes and obviously not very good pilots fairly easily, and then that would help the people who are sacrificing their very lives as we seek.
Another senator says the president should be ready to take it a step further.
I think we should be open to providing them with arms if they need it to succeed in their revolution.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified that they are a long way from making any decision on a no-fly zone. President Barack Obama says he wants the ability to respond rapidly, but gave no indication that he's going to do anything soon. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera at the White House.
Well, across the Arab world, tens of thousands of people are readying to rally on Friday as they keep up the pressure for reforms. In Iraq, protesters are making their way to central Baghdad to protest over corruption, unemployment and poor public services. Well, Jane Araf is joining us live now from Baghdad's Tahrir Square. Jane, what are we expecting to happen in Baghdad today? What sort of protests are we likely to see?
Well, Darren, you could probably see behind me the bridge, and this is the bridge that leads to the green zone. And on that bridge, they've deployed dozens of riot police. Now, the police are there to stop protesters from going any further. As you can see, it's a small but enthusiastic group of protesters. They are joined by others who are ranged around the square, and people have been walking for hours to get here. The government again imposed a total car ban, but that hasn't stopped several thousand people so far even from coming here, walking from their neighborhoods, chanting and carrying banners saying essentially that the government is against them.
Jane, we know that many Iraqis are demanding reform, but what's behind these latest protests?
It's a really interesting range of reasons, but really what they all have in common is that they are regretting the effect of this new democracy that they have. They went to the polls last year. A lot of people voted. Sunnis voted, Shias voted, Kurds voted, and they were promised a government that would reflect their interests. Well, it's almost a year later, and they don't have any of that. So they're out here protesting that they don't have services, that their politicians are corrupt, that Prime Minister Maliki has to go. Essentially, they are fed up with not having received any of the things they'd been promised, and they've come out here despite quite extensive government attempts to limit these protests, which is an indication that people really are quite angry.
And Jane, what's the political impact of all of this? Because many observers say Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki won't last the year.
That is what some people are betting on. It was a pretty shaky coalition to begin with. We have to remember that it took months to get it together. And it was forged, this coalition government, with the help of the United States. Now, some of the key elements that have propped up this shaky coalition have been kind of wobbling, if not disappearing, over the last few days. Ayad Alawi, a former prime minister, has said that he will not participate. Muqtada Sadr, a key backer of Prime Minister Maliki, has indicated that he's not terribly happy either. And for the first time ever here, perhaps, it all comes down to what's happening in this square, because what's happening in this square is happening across the country. People are coming out and saying that they actually expect those people they voted for to follow up on their promises. And to some extent, it's having a ripple effect on the political system here.
All right, Jane Araf there in Baghdad. Jane, thank you. Egypt's new Prime Minister is expected to make an appearance in Cairo's Liberation Square on Friday. Essam Sharaf takes over from Ahmed Shafiq after his surprise resignation on Thursday. Sharaf, a former transport minister, has been asked to form a new government. Well, these are live pictures now from Liberation, or Tahrir Square, in the Egyptian capital. Pro-democracy campaigners camped there celebrated after the announcement that Shafiq would be replaced by Essam Sharaf. Well, let's join our correspondent, Ayman Mohyeddin, who's overlooking Tahrir Square. Ayman, so large crowds are already starting to gather. What are we expecting to happen there later?
Well, Darren, in a short while, we are expecting Friday prayers to commence, as they have been for the past several weeks, amidst the backdrop of thousands of protesters here. This week, the protest demands have slightly shifted. Over the past several weeks, they have been demanding the ousting of the Prime Minister, Ahmed Shafiq. They got that demand met yesterday when they announced that he was resigning and a new Prime Minister was indeed scheduled to take over. That Prime Minister, Essam Sharaf, is expected to actually come to Tahrir Square and address the crowd today. And you can imagine what an important gesture that would be for a sitting Egyptian politician to come and meet with the protesters that have been essentially staging these constant demonstrations over the past month or so. Now, he himself, Dr. Sharaf, had been to Tahrir when President Hosni Mubarak was still in power. He joined the protesters, and certainly he has earned a lot of street credibility, if you will, with these protesters, the demonstrators, and more importantly, with the political factions who had